All right, so welcome everybody. We're here at the wastewater workshop. You might remember the workshops are very informal. You can speak at any time. You can ask questions at any time. It's a back and forth conversation, so they're very informal. With that, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Okay, city manager.
Today's workshop is on wastewater, and it's going to go along the same lines as it did last time in regards to, we have the engineers who the city hired back in 2019-20 timeframe to provide kind of an update. We do also have the gentleman who work out at the wastewater treatment plant. If you have some further in the field type of questions. As part of this presentation, yesterday I was quite surprised at some of the information provided to me. So I think we have some real discussion to move forward regarding affluent water. The city already accepted the feasibility study on the wastewater treatment plant. We've already done part of the repairs with the new aerator. But we're kind of going into we haven't gotten a grant to help fund us with this project phases. How do we want to move forward? Priorities. This year we are focused on the ARPA funds. We are required to utilize those. So we're doing the clarifier and the drying beds.
Okay.
Sorry, I put it in the wrong spot.
Okay, thank you.
So we're still moving forward with bigger major repairs and not just trying to band-aid it, or we're actually going to fix and redo. But it does all come with a high price tag. So I believe Kurt is on.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment? Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Kurt is on. He will be doing the presentation, going over everything and where we're at. The two main focuses I asked him to look at was the wastewater treatment plant and moving forward, and then of course the affluent waters. So I will let Kurt start with his presentation.
All right, thanks, Megan. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, awesome. Kurt Harwell, Jacob and Martin. Again, just appreciate the opportunity to do this and appreciate the opportunity to have worked with the city for now, I guess going on almost 3 or 4 years. So it's been a great relationship, and we just hope to continue to grow that through the coming years. So I'll jump right in here. You can go to the next slide. The items I wanted to cover briefly tonight were just a recap really on what we did about 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago, which was a complete wastewater evaluation of the wastewater treatment plant. And I'll be brief on that. I did a presentation to the council about 1.5 years ago, and that was about an hour presentation. So I won't rehash that presentation.
Thank you.
And then I want to touch
Anytime. Yes.
And then I want to touch on the 2024 CIP project that Megan mentioned, and then I'll provide a little bit of information about y'all's effluent reuse and what y'all are authorized to do there. So go ahead to the next slide. All right, as I mentioned, about 2 years ago, we did complete a complete evaluation of the wastewater treatment plant. This picture is just to kind of give you a little bit of visual of what the wastewater treatment plant looks like as far as the layout. I'm not going to go into the details of what everything is, but it's located northeast of town. And like I said, we looked at every single component in that picture when we did that evaluation. We looked at the capacity, we looked at the condition, and then we made some recommendations on improvements for each one of those components. So it was a pretty comprehensive evaluation. Like I said, I did a pretty long presentation on that about, I think it was April of 2022, I think. So that's just a picture of what your plant looks like. If you go to the next slide, the biggest thing that came out of that, I think the most practical piece of information for the city that came out of that evaluation was a plan, a prioritized capital improvement plan to bring that plant back up to a what I'd call serviceable, good condition plant. The plant's old. It's been added on to over the years. Some components are older than others, but the shells of a lot of the equipment, I mean, the concrete basins they're still in decent shape. So a lot of what we propose is just at that time was replacing a lot of the guts and pieces of the treatment processes that are already out there. And that's what this plan was. And we kind of laid it out based on, there was a couple of items that I think the city was working on at the time. I'm not for sure if those were completed. Those are at the top and they're kind of boxed in purple. And then we had some high priority items which we put in a 0 to 2 year time frame, and then some medium priority, which was a kind of more of a long-term 2 to 4 year plan. I can tell you that the top item under high priority, that permit amendment, that has been completed. It is done. We amended the permit, which was a big step because it had a lot of trickle down effect on a lot of these other items. The two items that I'm showing kind of boxed in green and with a 2024 CIP, those are the two items that we're planning on doing this year for the city. So this just kind of gives you a look at how I think the city's doing a good job of progressing through this capital improvement priority list. So kudos to the city for moving forward on these. I think they're doing a good job there. So if we can move on to the next slide.
Yeah, Megan, these slides don't have all the costs in the right column. You got cut off. So it's just,
I can get you the actual.
that'd be helpful, yeah, because I'm just trying to.
I don't need one. That number,
Yeah.
And back,
let Rick
back
look
up-
at
It's not calculus, okay?
No,
It's
no,
not.
I heard, just so you know, I printed out the slideshow, I had
Okay.
this and do it, so we just need to, you guys have an unedited kind of view of it.
Yeah, so, but just for this CIP, it's about $1.1 million. Thanks.
So
And
go
this will
back
be
up-
on the
go back
website,
to the-
right, where we can go back and look at it? And we can see the full,
It can be added. Yes.
Okay.
And can I ask, I want to hear your, why a new belt press? And that belt press isn't that old, and it's almost $1 million.
Sorry, go back to the slide before. I'm sorry. Can y'all see the slide, the whole
We can
slide?
see the slide, yeah, we
We-
just, yeah.
it's the numbers are too small for us to see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
I was just gonna say, those estimated construction costs, those were $2022, or 21 maybe dollars. So I did want you to know, I wanted you to know that those dollars were not inflated. In other words, they have not been brought forward based on inflation. So I did want to make that a point. But you had a question about the belt press.
Yeah, so the belt press is not probably any more than 7 or 8 years old. Why a new belt press going forward?
And that's, I guess you're looking at the medium priority, 2 to 4 years.
Number 12 on your list, yeah.
So it was not necessarily to replace the belt press itself. It was to provide, that belt press just sits out there and it's not in a very, it's
So it's
not
a building.
positioned. Yeah, it's to put a building around it and make it more.
I got it. I've been out there. I've seen it frozen in a bunch of parts. I got that. Okay, so it's a
Okay.
building. Thank you.
Yep. It's just not very serviceable the way it is right now.
I'm with you. Okay.
Okay. But I did want to point out about the cost, because the costs that I'm about to share for the 2024 project, or they're not going to add up. If you add 250 and 900,000, that's only, $1.5 million or something, or $1.15 million. So if you go to the next slide,
It's a 10% increase.
yeah, probably a little more than 10%.
Yeah, okay.
So this is just a summary of what the project's going to look like this year, and it's to one, address the solids handling improvements consisting of the construction of all 6 drying beds. There's 6 drying beds out there. 2 of them are kind of functional right now. 4 of them are not functional at all, but they all need to be rehabbed. And then the second item is just rehabbing one of your two clarifiers. And then the estimated cost on that is 1.41 million, and that includes all the engineering design, construction administration, and all the construction costs. So that's a turnkey cost for, it's all the soft costs and all of the construction costs.
So to make sure we're talking the same language, there's two clarifiers out there right now. One is empty, non-usable. What clarifier number is that? Number 2 or number 1?
Oh, I didn't know that one was empty. I thought they were both currently online. If they're not,
No,
that
no,
might,
one of them is a disaster. So that's what I'm asking. So is this to bring the one that's down completely serviceable? And I'm looking at the guys in the back.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question again?
So which clarifier is gonna get rehabbed? The one that's guts are emptied or the one that's working? Thank you. Okay.
And just for clarification, they both need, they're both in dire need of rehab.
I know, but at least you got one working.
Correct.
The other one's not working at all. Okay,
Good, thank you.
thanks.
I have one question on here. Asset life cycle. Once these are replaced, how long do you think until they would need to be replaced again?
Great question.
Oh, that's good.
just due to the environment, obviously, it's not it's a harsh environment that this equipment is in. So we typically will say, you need to start planning to replace that in 20 years, the guts. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the wastewater world, it's usually about 20 years. You know, and you get into the water world where the water, you know, cleaner environment, you can get up to 40 years on a lot of equipment.
That makes
So
sense.
we're gonna replace one clarifier and leave another one cruddy,
No, so
We're gonna replace the guts inside one clarifier because it doesn't
the
work
one that
at
didn't
all.
work.
the one not working at all.
And then as we go through trying to figure out how to pay for more of the repairs at the treatment plant, then we would replace the second.
Okay,
Because we'd like to have two clarifiers
Yeah.
well, but so they both need to be rehabbed.
at some point, yeah, but one of them,
Everything needs to be.
I know,
rehabbed.
I know. Got that.
yeah, one is a disaster.
I just
To put
think
it
as long as we're
lightly.
fixing one, we might as well fix the other.
Do you have 900,000?
Absolutely.
Got it
So-
first, don't you?
So we're
Yeah.
utilizing the funds we currently have that we are required to use or we give back to the government.
Yeah, we don't want to.
So we're gonna use them. And at the same time, we've been trying to find other sources to fund the remaining
Right.
portion. That was the big grant push in March, which we didn't get. A lot of looking at infrastructure grants that we don't qualify or we have to go through the state to apply for. So we're doing a lot of research and field work as far as what's the
I know.
next step to fund it. Right now, we have to use.
So
this
if we
money.
get the one that doesn't have anything fixed, does it affect, will it make this one work harder or less?
Well, the,
Or do they tandem? Is this a tandem operation out there? I don't know anything about it.
They're designed, they're designed to work. Your plant capacity, for your plant capacity, they're designed to work together. Not just one. So they're designed to work together, but by making these improvements to one of them, it's gonna help the overall plant process.
Okay.
Is it gonna bring you back where you need to be? No, you still need to rehab that last clarifier, but it's gonna help. It's gonna help a lot. Just like the improvements to the aerators probably helped a lot.
Okay.
And
Thank you. Thank
how
you.
much do we process a day, ballpark? Is it 300,000, 400,000 gallons?
I think y'all's average was around 0.4 MGD, I think, which would
Okay.
be 400,000 gallons a day.
Yeah. Okay,
If your operators are there, they might have a better number than what I just said.
That's what they said.
nodded, yes.
So I also want council to understand, the reason these two items were picked was because this was the most complaints I received in the past year before we made the decision.
From
Was over
TCEQ.
No, from the staff, was for
From
the
the staff, okay.
fire
Oh, yeah.
and for the drying beds.
Okay.
It's a marvelous tour out there.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Kaylin did it with me.
Are you guys ready to go to the next?
Yep.
We're
Any other
ready.
questions?
Continue
Okay.
on.
In the next slide, if you'll go ahead and move to the next slide, it's and we've talked about this a little bit already, is that this is just a little bit more detail. This is actually a slide I showed at the presentation on the full evaluation, but it just gives you a little bit more information about the solid handlings. It's not specifically addressed in the permit, but the design capacity is governed by TCEQ rules. And what's so important about solids handling is your wastewater plant is continually producing solids. It always is. It's just a product of the wastewater process. I mean, you know what's going there. There's a lot of solids in it. And if you cannot efficiently get those solids out of your plant, processed, well, it becomes like a clogged toilet, basically. If you can't get the solids out, it just clogs the plant up, and it starts to operate inefficiently. And I'm sure the guys can vouch for this. If you can't get rid of the solids, it causes a lot of problems, a lot of headaches, and to the point where you can't meet your TCEQ permitted effluent requirements. So being able to efficiently get rid of the solids is pretty critical for any plant. And TCEQ requires, if you look on the right there of that slide, it requires that you have two ways to do it. So you have your belt press, which when it's working, it should be working efficiently, and you should be able to pretty much process all you need to with the belt press. The TCEQ says, okay, you got one way to process solids. You have to have a redundant backup way to do it, and that's what the drying beds are for. So that's why it's critical that we get these drying beds rehabilitated, so you have that second means in case the belt press goes down. You need to have another way to process those solids, or like I said, you start getting backed up, you start getting clogged, and it creates issues. So this is a pretty critical component of the wastewater treatment plant, and that's why we're recommending that you guys go ahead and get these drying beds rehabbed. And I kind of highlighted those items on this slide. There's other things we recommend with the solids handling and as far as improvements, but these are probably the most critical at this point. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the guys in back, how the sludge pumps working?
Sludge pump being what now?
Well, it's pumping the sludge into the drying beds.
Oh, the rest,
Yeah,
they're running efficiently. Was there an issue that you had heard of, or?
no, I'm just asking questions, trying to understand the whole system. Now, what about that coming out of what I would call the racetrack into the clarifiers? How's those working?
Good.
Okay. So what's not on the list that you want to have on the list because you're worried about it, or are you comfortable with this? I'm comfortable. Okay. Good, okay.
One question on the belt press. If it doesn't go into the drying beds, where does that all end up? Where's the terminus? Or where's all the solids end up?
Well, if it gets through flows like at a certain point, we can overflow through the plant to that water.
Yeah.
If it's not picking up.
And the belt press ends up, so the solids start on the belt press, where do they end?
They end up in a dumpster and then the landfill.
Yeah, so small drying beds are just big flat areas. You put it all in, it pumps, you let it dry. And then you scoop it out with the tractor
Send it to the landfill.
in the landfill. The belt press, you bring it together, you smash all the water out and you dump it into the dumpster. It all goes to the dumpster.
Mr. Nance, I'm sorry, Mr. Nance, is that your name? I can't get
Yes,
it. Well,
yes, sir.
whenever you want, just give us a holler.
Yeah.
We'll be more than happy to get you out there.
It's fun, Darren, you ought to go.
You are solid heavy, and that's the main issue we have with the plant. We can utilize the belt press as well as drying beds for a good maybe. If we were to do that aggressively for about 12, 13 months, we would see a vast improvement.
Yep.
But that's why we need the second clarifier to work.
No point. Yep.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, because you're gonna see where affluent water comes out of the clarifiers, or all the stuff goes down the bottom, the solids gets pumped out, goes to drying beds or belt press, the water coming up over the top, affluent water.
And they'll explain the whole thing as you walk along.
Yeah,
Very cool.
so to give you that, so just ask the question, Drew, you're gonna Charles, how's the tractor working, guys?
That's good. Okay. All right, Kurt. We ready to move on, guys?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, you can go to the next slide.
It's butterscotch.
So this is just on the right is kind of a picture of what, if you're trying to picture what the clarifier looks like, this is just kind of a piece of it, but it's just a big round basin. Has a big arm that goes around and kind of rotates and but this is what a clarifier looks like. And there's two of them, like we talked about. So the plan is with this project is just to replace one of them, which includes taking all of the mechanical components, which is what you can see in the inside there of the basin, all of that bridge and that arm, and there's some stuff underneath the water that you can't see, ripping all that out and replacing it with new components. The basin itself, the concrete basin itself, looks to be in good shape. Although I think we did have an allowance to coat the inside of it or repair the inside of the basin if we find that there's a need to. That's essentially what the other component of this project is. I do want to note, I mentioned earlier that it was pretty critical that we get that permit amended first. If you look at this on this slide at the top, there's two capacity bullets. And one says current permitted flow and amended permitted flow. Based on our calculations and your old permit, these two clarifiers were undersized. But now that we've amended your permit to a lower flow, the capacity of the two clarifiers meets the requirement. So that was a big deal to get the permit amended, which would bring these two clarifiers into compliance as far as capacity. And now because they're in compliance, all we need to do is just rehab them instead of replace them with a bigger clarifier.
So
Which is
what were permitted for before, at what rate?
Oh, man, I should have known you'd ask that question.
It
And I
was
was just
over,
gonna ask him that, Rick.
it was over $1 million.
It was a lot.
Well, you're kidding.
Yeah,
No, it was too
it's like
much.
1.2, 1.4 million. It was way more than you
It
needed.
was way too much.
Off the charts.
And the other nice piece to this is after we amended, we're no longer required to have the B license.
Is this
Oh,
all electrical out there?
Yes.
oh, yeah,
It's just a bunch of gears that make that thing go
you
back.
got it.
No, it's some guy with a spoon.
Yeah.
See you on this, Judy.
A bunch of gears. I just thought.
That's what it is.
That's where the
dive
term
down in
comes
there
from,
and
Judy.
stealing.
Get your scuba diver
So when you
license.
fix that one, you'll have to drain all that. So where does it go? Is there anything in the one we're gonna fix?
In the
No,
clarifier,
the one, yeah.
we do have to drain it in order to,
Where are you gonna put it?
you have to kind of.
Run it
Just
back.
asking.
It would run back,
Oh, that's good.
it would run back through the plant.
It goes back to the plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can recirculate all the water that's in there back through the plant.
We can't just dump it on the ground.
Yeah.
We
Right.
can't dump it in the trash.
It's hot.
It's a lot of water.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, how will they be able to do this? If we're on one clarifier, how do you simultaneously do this work while you're still processing wastewater?
You're not, that's why they're gonna do the one that's empty.
We're starting
It's
with
not
the
working.
most damaged, and then once that one's fixed and we have funding, we'll move to the second one, so that one's will take over, so we can fit.
So the redundancy is built in.
Yeah.
And we've had problem before with things of not being able to get the parts. Can you get all these parts?
Yes. Yes.
So one of the things
Sounds
that
great.
Andy, one of the things Andy did, who works for Jacob and Martin, has already been contacting vendors
Okay,
to get a feel
Yep.
for how we move forward with this project.
okay.
All right, we ready to move on?
Okay, we can move to the last slide. That's all I was gonna mention about the project this year, the CIP project. The last item I mentioned on there was your wastewater treatment plant effluent reuse. So just to give you a little bit of history on on this, what the city's able to do. And I guess everybody understands when I say effluent, that's, you know, that's the end product that when you get, when the wastewater is treated, right before it goes out and discharge into a nearby creek, that's what we call effluent. So that's kind of after it's been treated. And you have a permit with the state that allows you to discharge the effluent waste into a creek. And that's after it's been treated. It has to obviously meet a bunch of criteria as far as quality and whatnot. So, but separate from that permit to discharge, the city has what is called a 210 authorization. And this was issued to the city from the state back in November of 2005. So it's a separate document from your permit. And what that allows you to do is to take that effluent and reuse it. So you can pump it from the wastewater treatment plant back into town, and you can use that effluent for the following purposes, which I've listed there. And it's critical that I put there in bold, it's type 2 reuse. There's type 1 and type 2, and I'll explain the difference here in a minute. But your 210 authorization allows you to use that effluent for reuse for irrigation of non-food crops, grasslands, landscaped areas, tree farms, and golf courses. And to also use it for dust control or construction water. So that is specifically listed out in your 210 authorization. As far as where you can use it, it's pretty much anywhere within the city's ETJ is the service area for the reuse of that effluent. And then the effluent water quality parameters that it has to meet to be able to be used for effluent is it has to have a BOD5 of 20 milligrams per liter. And the authorization says fecal coliform sampling. It's actually E. coli sampling now. They kind of changed the wording on that a little bit, or the type of sample it is, but it's bacteria basically that you have to test for in the water, in the effluent. As long as you meet that BOD5 and the fecal coliform, you can reuse the effluent for the purposes listed above. And based on what our most recent samples that we've seen, and the guys in the room may be able to vouch for this, your effluent should be meeting those two criteria of BOD5 fecal coliform. So you should not be limited in reusing your effluent right now for the purposes listed above. So let me back up real quick before you ask any questions about this. So type 2, basically it says that it can be used on any irrigation purposes that's not going to have direct contact to people. Type 1 it can be like in parks and residential yards, and where it's going to have direct contact with people. Now, you're going to probably say, well, what about golf courses? You know, people have direct contact on golf courses. They do, but somehow the golfing industry got themselves qualified as type 2, which is a good thing. I mean, it's a good use of the effluent. It really is. So based on my research and everything I've seen, and I know this is contrary to what you are maybe told by a previous operator, there's no reason from my standpoint and that you should not be able to use this effluent for irrigation purposes like golf courses. I know golf course is a big one. I think that y'all have in the past sent this water to.
So what about the university landscaped area?
I'm almost certain that will qualify as type 1 reuse.
Okay, university type 1. So,
Because
when you say
Is the amount of
landscaped, what
people-
does that mean?
The amount of people that could come in contact with it.
Well, it would be, landscaped areas that don't have any exposure to people. Now, I don't know what that would be.
So a non-grassy area would probably be landscape, not exposure to people.
I think they would have.
Maybe, not positive about that.
Understand that, but I'm thinking about all the other landscape they got around there. Okay. So that's probably one we want to understand more. Okay. Okay.
Who, TCEQ, would they be the ultimate authority on that?
Sure.
With some technical.
Yeah,
But the
TCEQ would be
difference
the
is-
ultimate authority, and if there was a question about, if there was we thought there might be a gray area, we need to run it by them and make sure that they were agreeable to it.
Great.
So this would actually type 2 would also be for Coconut Spring.
No,
Nope,
No.
can't do it standing water.
Gotcha.
Gotta be for irrigation, not for a pond.
Cause that's all supply to non-recreational water bodies. That would not be a non-recreational water body.
Where do you see that?
they want to put bird watching.
TCEQ website.
Oh, okay, TCEQ.
Because of the bird watching.
He opened it up for recreation.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I, question would be, how much effluent so you guys process 400,000 gallons a day. How much of that goes into effluent? How much effluent?
None currently.
But how much could? How much could, guys? How much effluent could you pump, can you create each day?
Can we divert to the golf course thing?
Yeah.
Roughly, 400,000 gallons is what we're being with processed.
Right.
Effluent, we generate.
Yeah, I think that's that exception. I remember Robin Breed.
So 200,000 is what you could do. right?
If everything flows
Everything
correctly,
flowed. This golf course is using, what we figure, Megan, 30,000 a day ballpark?
yes.
30,000 a day?
Golf course, yeah.
Are they really?
And more in the summer months.
Yeah,
That's the
I'm sorry,
high.
in some months, yeah.
Summer.
Yeah, so it could be higher, but yeah. Okay, so you can clearly do golf course. Okay, and then do we have a sense, Megan, about where else this will apply to
The only other interested party has been the university
in the university?
in Adelina, but we wouldn't really, because we can't do it parks, so we wouldn't apply it ourselves.
Yeah, okay.
And it should stay within our ETJ.
In our
so
ETJ.
We can't get.
Oh, we cannot give it to the county. That's by law or regulation.
Well, no, it's, you want to keep it anywhere within the ETJ.
Yeah.
Ship it out,
But doesn't our ETJ run out a mile or two or whatever? So if there's county land that could use it,
as long as it met the specifications.
yeah,
That would be
okay.
better.
But
I
we-
think the specifications is what gets.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good.
I do like his explanation of the golfing industry.
Yeah.
Because it is, once you kind of look at it, just the overview, it becomes very, I don't know, golf, but not everything.
Yeah,
Claudius.
well, they're wearing
No
shoes.
football fields, no.
Yeah. I'm not playing this girl. Okay.
And
Well, that's good.
the 30,000 tank there, if I'm not crazy, I think the golf course said if they pump the entire day, they can fill that up. But is that because the straw, the pipe that goes from effluent out to the golf course is only so big, so we can only get that amount of water to that pump? But if you had a larger tank there, you couldn't fill it up. Is my
Fill it up.
assumption.
That tank's bigger than 30,000.
Okay, so we could pump more than
Oh,
30,000.
by all means. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
So I will mention that if there is a desire to send water to the university for irrigation of their property, their lawn or whatever, you can apply for a type 1 210 authorization. I mean, you're not stuck with this one. I mean, you can apply for a new permit. The only problem right now is that I'm not sure the plant can meet a type 1 effluent. Once all these components are rehabbed and all the processes are running like they should be, and you're processing solids like you should be, I have no doubt that plant can meet a type 1 effluent.
Okay.
And I would highly recommend we actually get the plant to where it needs to be before we try to take on
Right.
Oh,
additional.
my
And
God.
I would too. I would recommend the same thing.
So how often do we check the affluent water to be compliant? Is that a daily, a weekly, a monthly? How often? Daily.
Daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we also use effluent for ourselves, for like the belt press. Like, let's say we're using the belt press, we still use that. So there's times where, I wouldn't say conflicting, but there's times we have to call the golf course and tell them, or before when we were giving water.
Yeah.
Hey, we're using the effluent, so we can't give you water at the moment. So it's better just to kind of get with that, you know, and have set dates and do that too.
Yeah. But that's workable. Good. Okay.
What timetable are we looking at as far as from when the project starts and when the project completes?
So we have to go out for the RFP first, and that's what Jacob and Martin has been working on. These types of RFPs are a lot more detailed, especially from an engineering perspective. So they assist us with that. So the idea is to get the RFP, and correct me, Kurt, we're trying to get it March. Hopefully that's enough time. Then we have to go out and hopefully somebody responds. And then council would have to approve an award. And then we would initiate. So we may not actually get something in place until more September, October timeframe.
When do you have to commit the money?
So the money has to be committed by the end of this year.
Okay, so,
Fiscal or?
No, December 31st.
okay,
So we have an annual report, April, that's due. So because we have expended nothing, the report will show that we've obligated, but we haven't spent.
there you go.
Okay.
But then at the same time, in April of 25, we ideally need to show them that we have spent or
Spent.
done something.
Okay.
Well, good. This is a good
No, I
report.
think that timeline was pretty accurate. Megan, I think that's pretty feasible, pretty doable.
So for us to truly obligate on the federal side is we basically have to have a contract. So like I said, we're not basically saying this report will be zeros. The next one, we will show that we have a contract, we secured it, it's all going to this contract.
Good to know.
Nice,
Mhm.
nice.
Okay. Any comments, gentlemen? Any questions from anybody, audience? Council?
Nope.
No? Okay. You have a question? Oh, okay, yes. The affluent? I don't know, is it legal? No?
Not that I'm aware of.
Like
no.
construction, one of the items where it could be.
Yeah.
You could, but
Sure.
you're probably not getting many buyers.
Yeah.
Kurt, have you ever heard of someone selling their affluent?
Yes,
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that type 1 or type 2?
both.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just looking at the market though, you gotta have a market to sell.
Right. Of course, for anything.
Yeah, and
I
I'm
mean-
just. If you're doing a major construction job where you're doing a lot of grading, of course. But those are few and far between.
At least in our area.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Don't worry, Kurt, it's not gonna be a task anytime soon.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that was a
Right
great
now, the
question.
main priority and goal is to get the plant to its.
Sure, yes. I don't think anybody questions that. All right, so with that, I'm gonna adjourn this workshop.
That's right.
Okay,
Thank
good
you.
deal. So regular city council meeting starts at 5:30. Anybody who has any public comments, make sure you fill out the public comment card and put it over here in the little box that says